Good afternoon and welcome to beautiful Rosendale, Wisconsin, home of the Winnebago RC Flyers. I'm at the flying field today and I've got two engines on the stand, which I always have two engines on the stand, but I'm showing both engines on the stand today because these are both the Super Tigre engines I've got. This one is the G75 and this one is the G90. Now I did a quick garage run video on the G90 and talked about a little bit of the issues I had with that, but I'm not going to go into that right now. What I'm going to do here is run both of these engines. Now this engine has had one run on it ever. This one has had maybe 3 or 4, if even that. I've run it one time for a very short time. The fellow that I traded for it, Mike, he said he ran it one time and he thought it looked new when he got it. So I really have no idea how much time that one has on it. This one, the 90, has a master air screw 13.6 on it. This one still has the 11.8 break-in prop. But what I'm going to do is when I run these engines, I'm going to use the same prop on both of the engines. So I'll be using this master air screw 13.6 on both engines. This 90 currently has an OS number 8 plug in it, but I am going to put the stock Super Tigre plug back in it and see what happens. The only reason I put that plug in there was because the knife starter stays attached to that head, whereas the Super Tigre plug is not cut out, so that it stays clamped on there and it makes it a little more difficult. So with that said, I believe I'm going to rotate this stand around and run the 90 first, and then I'll run the 75. I'm not entirely sure if this is going to be one video, one long video, or if I'm going to break it into multiple videos, but I will probably do a separate introduction again for each video, for each engine, just to talk about a few things, potentially. Okay, I hope you can hear me. It's really a windy day today. As I said, this is the Super Tigre G90 engine. I put the original Super Tigre plug back in it. And those of you that watched the quick garage run will know that I mentioned that when I would go to prime this engine, it wasn't keeping fuel in the line. And I said I was going to swap carbs between the G75 and this, and I did that and nothing changed. So then I pulled the head or checked the fasteners, and it seemed like one of the head screws might have been loose, but I don't remember now. I didn't see any debris anywhere. All gaskets looked fine. And I swapped tanks and that didn't change anything either. But now when I do this, if I just do this, it'll hold fuel in the line. But it's like when I go over to compression, it comes out. So I'm not sure what's going on with this, but it seemed to start fine when I had the OS number 8 plug. Now I noticed that the Super Tigre plug does not seem to glow quite as bright, and I tested it against the other new one. Just doesn't seem to glow quite as bright as the number 8 plug, but we'll see what happens here. See, it should have fired up by now. And I tested this same setup on my other engine and it was fine, so I'm not sure what is going on. Maybe it's this Super Tigre plug is just really not that good. I don't know. May have to swap it back. I mean, that should be plenty to get this engine fired up. And it's not even popping. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap to the number 8 plug again and ditch this whole setup and fire it up again. Okay, so now I've got the OS number 8 plug on here. So I leaned it out too much there. Now, one thing for sure, I got oil leakage coming here, and I think it's just because there's no gasket any longer on this thing. Oh, what I didn't mention was that the fuel that's in this tank is the same fuel that's in the other tank for the G75, and it's a fresh batch of 5% fuel, which was basically made from omega 15% cut with the appropriate ratio of my 80-20 FAI fuel. So it turns out we may not be able to do just a break-in or a comparison run with these things now, because it just seems like these engine, at least this one, may just require some more break-in. In fact, before I do that, I think I put a mark on here. I'm going to close this needle valve up completely. So I'm going to go 2 turns from fully closed. The other thing is, this engine was experiencing what I have known or have heard called the Super Tigre transition issue. I did not actually set this carb up per my normal procedure, which is to, set the low speed, but it does seem to be set fairly good. I think I may have to actually go through that procedure, but I did adjust the spray bar on that one run, but what I really need to do is I need to get this thing idling and sit there and watch what the idle speed does. Just sitting there idling is going to tell me whether it's rich or lean, regardless of any transition issue that there might be happening. So let me get it up and running again here and get it idling. It's setting fairly constant, so that tells me that the mid-range or the idle adjustment should be pretty good. But watch this transition now. It's like it's totally off there. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to readjust the spray bar to what it was in the stock configuration, which was slightly more up than this. It was more like that. We'll see if that helps anything. Because the low speed, if at idle, it sits there and it's pretty stable, then you know you've got a really good low speed setting. If the low speed or the idle just slowly creeps up and dies, then it means it's too lean. If the idle speed slowly goes down and then dies, then it's too rich. This was pretty steady, so that tells me that the low speed mixture is fine. see if this will happen. Nope. Bit rich. Well, as you can see, those wire ties didn't stay on there. Okay, so that was a good run. It's interesting that it was acting very different in the garage the other day than it was out here. In the garage the other day was the first time I had run it. I don't know when the last time it was run was, but I don't know. All I know is I ran it and it was running fine, although I had to put the number 8 plug in there, because when I ran my G75 I used this adapter and ran the Super Tigre plug that was in my G75, and I had no issues with it at all. For whatever reason, it will not fire this thing up using this and that Super Tigre plug that came in it. I compared both of those plugs visually. They both look like they glowed about the same. However, they glowed less bright than a number 8 plug. I'm not really sure what to make of that. All I know is the transition issue I was hearing with this did get better when I put the spray bar back up to where it was when I got it, which was about the same exact position that this engine, the G75, was from the factory. Now, The other day when I was in the garage, I moved it down a little bit just to see if that helped the transition issue. It really didn't. Today, it just seems like maybe it just wanted a little bit more fuel run through it. Maybe it just wanted a little bit more brake in. It ran so much better, and I was really hoping, and many people wanted to hear the difference between these two exhausts. This one's not warm anymore, really. And so I had put some zip ties on here, hoping that would have held it in place better. Because one of these screws is longer, maybe I can try and re-zip tie it and get it on there. But I think you can tell there is probably a little bit of a tone difference, and there may be a bit of a performance difference between the stock and this exhaust. But I don't have the other exhaust to put on here and try it anyway. But so I think this engine is a really nice engine. I'm still kind of confused. The compression seems it seems fine to me. I was confused as to why the fuel draw wasn't coming in there on this engine, but maybe that'll change over time also. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to flip the stand around now and run the G75 engine, but obviously you'll probably have to see that in a different video because this one's already been pretty long. So there's your run for this G90 Super Tigre engine. Okay, here is the G75 engine, and like I said in the previous video that hopefully you'll go back and watch, same fuel. This time, or not this time, in this engine I have the stock Super Tigre plug, so I'll be using my little Y setup here because this McDaniel Nye starter does not clip onto these Super Tigre plugs. One thing I did just notice, I got the G90 over here on the other side, is that this engine has much better compression than that G90. That leads me to believe that perhaps the fuel draw issue that's happening on that engine might be related to the fact that maybe somebody took that thing apart and misoriented the sleeve in there, because for being engines that are roughly about the same age as far as number of runs, this one, the G90, has very light compression compared to this one. So I'm not sure what's going on with that engine. I don't know the history of it. Pretty much know the entire history of this engine. Let's just fire this thing up and see how she runs. 13.6 prop, 5% nitro fuel, Super Tigre stock plug. Just see, this thing takes a prime like nothing. Takes prime very well. Hell, this thing might even hand start. Maybe not. Pretty sure I got it primed. Maybe I do have an issue with this little setup now, that it's not. I just don't have, maybe I got a short or open here now. I just wish this thing would lock on there. It's kind of on there. Let's see if I can fire it up. definitely some strangeness going on here. That's not what I wanted to have happen. indicate that the low end is too rich. I know I'm breaking all sorts of theoretical rules here by how I'm running these engines, but I can only do so many things with a limited number of runs and time that I have. So you're just going to have to bear with it. If you don't like it, don't watch. Maybe it's the other way around. I don't know. Seems very unhappy right now. Let's try that. Maybe I'm just losing my mind. Okay, so I finally got this one dialed back in. Maybe I never had it. I thought the first run it ran pretty good when I don't think I did anything before the first run. I don't think I did anything to the low speed mixture at all. That was all stock settings on the first run, if I recall correctly. It wasn't that long ago, but apparently I'm not remembering. So I must have been really out in the weeds with what I thought was happening with the idle speed and the transition, because it just wasn't right. So I turned the camera off and I disconnected the fuel line and did my standard carb setup with the low speed blowing through there and having the throttle stop screw set at a good idle position. And when I first did that, I wasn't hearing any fuel go through there. Like I had been leaning it and closing it too much from its stock position. So that's why I wasn't running and transitioning and idling very well. So after doing my setup, that's when I turned the camera back on and it was running fine and transitioning fine. It would sustain a little bit longer idle. A lot of that length of sustained idle probably has to do with the short amount of break-in that this engine has had. It hasn't had a whole lot. This was only the second run. I know I was running it kind of hard, but honestly I don't have the time to sit here and do hour-long runs with each of these engines to get them fully broken in. So for the sake of these videos, what you see is what you get. But this engine runs really well. This is still the Super Tigre plug. But that G90, I think there's really something just not right with that G90. Like I said at the end of that video, and I'm kind of all over the place with making these videos today. This could just be one long ass video so that at least the conversation I'm having is contiguous and not broken up between videos. I was really unsure how to do all of this anyway, so it may just be one really long video. But the G90 on the other side of the stand here, I know it's not in frame right now, but it was at the intro. It has a lot less compression. And supposedly it's a fairly new engine. I mean, the compression, listen. And I don't even hear that on this engine. That engine also was not pulling fuel into the carb and holding it like it should. So my theory on the G90 is that potentially somebody took that apart and doesn't have the sleeve oriented properly. So that's what I'm thinking is happening with that. So like I said, this is a long video and I'm just gonna have to wrap it up here. So thank you.